Right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. We are thrilled to have you join us for this special event. We have a fantastic multimedia presentation ahead, and I'm excited to be here with a true legend of adventure travel, Richard Bangs, who is here to explore the stories behind his new book, The 50 Greatest Adventures on Earth. Often called the father of modern adventure travel, Richard has been recognized as one of the 100 greatest explorers of the past 100 years. He's a pioneer of adventure, co-founder of Mountain Travel Sobek, and the author of more than 20 books, including his latest, which we'll be diving into tonight. My name is Ann Wood. I'm the Director of Trip Development at Mountain Travel Sobek, and it's a pleasure to welcome such an inspiring explorer of our time. So without further ado, Richard, thank you for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Ann. Uh, Ann and I go way back, I think, decades at this point. So a different story. So to begin, I want to confess that AI gets some credit for this presentation, but it may not be what you think. I put this together over a few glasses of wine. So in this case, AI is alcohol inspired. Uh, it's true that we've had over a half century of exploring and adventuring. And we went from uh, very humble beginnings with virtually nothing in our pockets to somehow adventuring and exploring uh, remote places all over the planet. And there were probably thousands of adventures that we've been involved in over the years. And I was asked by my publisher to see if I could distill it down to the top 50. That alone was a tough exercise. It's like trying to choose your favorite children, particularly if you're an Arab sheik with 50 wives. Um, and I then decided that I should distill even further and present what might be my favorites, the top 10, over these decades of exploring and telling stories. Along the way, I've participated, I think, in over 30 first descents of wild rivers around the world. And beyond that, we've gone into places that were not particularly welcoming, and in many cases they were the first. So I led the first American trip into North Korea in modern times, one of the first into Iran, and into Libya, the first American group into Libya, and many others. So between the rivers and the mountains and the wildernesses of the world, I think we've done a lot. The adventures, why and how were these the chosen ones? The adventures reveal themselves, I think, through a blend of forces. There's remoteness, cultural resonance, accessibility, and the elusive spark of glamour that has always drawn explorers toward the unknown. These are not the largest or the most extreme, but they embody the qualities that have defined humanity's most meaningful journeys. Landscapes shaped by powerful natural forces, pathways where history, myth, and human endurance intersect, places where the geologic, ecological, and cultural energies of the planet converge, and regions still wild enough to transform the traveler who moves through them. By the way, the photo there is of my two original partners, John Yost and George Wendt, who unfortunately is no longer with us. These are living corridors of discovery where one feels both the ancient impulse to explore and the modern responsibility to understand, protect, and engage with the world's remaining frontiers. They represent to me the rare places where challenge, beauty, mystery, and meaning come together, offering not merely an experience, but a deeper connection to the earth and to ourselves. So the first one, number 10 in my list, my personal list here, is the Galapagos. And I spent 9 years doing a series of specials for PBS, and one of them featured the Galapagos. So I thought I'd just show you a short clip from that particular special. At first glance, the Galapagos don't evoke wonder, but something akin to dread. The landscape of this island chain straddling the equator is barren, severe, ragged, and raw. The volcanoes still steam and fire, and in some places the ground is barely cool enough to step. It's like the birthplace of the planet. So I'm a diver, and the Galapagos, of course, has got extraordinary diving. And I was excited to get there and do that as part of the show that we were producing. Um, as we went out in the dive boat, I grabbed an apple as a snack before going underwater. And while I was down underwater, I felt something swirl around inside my mouth. And I played with it with my tongue for a second, trying to figure out what it was, and then I swallowed it. And remember, I'm the host of a TV show at this point. So I surfaced, and it turned out that I had lost my middle front tooth, which was a disaster from the producer's point of view. They tried to shoot the next few scenes at a long distance, but even then, no matter how far away, you could still see this gigantic gap in my mouth. So I ended up going to a Galapagos dentist who gave me actually a quite beautiful and effective temporary replacement tooth. And we went on and finished the show. What was interesting too was when I went to pay this dentist who did a remarkable job, she would not accept anything. You know, they have universal health care in Ecuador. So in the Galapagos Highlands, the giant tortoise moves with the unhurried certainty of something that has outlived empires. They live to 100, 150 years, and sometimes perhaps more. If you sit with one long enough, the forest quietly rearranges itself around you. The slow chew of grass, the soft exhale of a creature older than Darwin's maps, and the faint suspicion that you are the visitor here and it is the local historian. The marine iguana is the only lizard on Earth that forages in the sea. It can dive more than 30 feet underwater to graze on algae, then sneeze out excess salt through specialized glands near their noses. To me, they look like retired dragons contemplating eternity or Tokyo, not unlike some custom officers I've encountered over the years, including the wet sneezes. Galapagos sea lions are remarkably social and inquisitive. Pups often spend their days playing in the surf and investigating anything new, from drifting seaweed to visiting travelers, helping make them some of the most charismatic residents of the archipelago. One of the things I was looking forward to is swimming with the sea lions. And our dive master advised me. He said, look, if you really want to see a lot of sea lions, they love music. So if you go under, sing a song or two and they will gather around you and join the chorus. So excited with that opportunity, I dove and I started to sing. Didn't work. It turned out that I surfaced back up and said I didn't see a single sea lion, and the dive master says, "Well, what did you sing?" I said, "Well, Michael Jackson." He goes, "Oh no, they hate high voices. Try something lower." So I went back down.
I've heard people say that too much of anything is
And it worked.
good for you, baby.
Yeah, that's the secret. Some birds migrate, some birds sing, but the blue-footed booby, it performs interpreted dance for reasons known only to the universe and possibly Charles Darwin's ghost. Proof that evolution has a sense of humor. Yeah. They are wonderful to watch. I lost the staring contest with this guy. He regarded me with the weary patience of a creature who has outlived empires and was unimpressed by my breathable fabrics. He seemed to have the conviction of something that has watched centuries drift by like weather. Deadlines are human invention, and longevity belongs to those who refuse to rush, like this guy. It all starts innocently enough. Before long, he was critiquing my selfies, judging my life choices, and seeking the evolutionary reset button. So, of course, the man who started it all, the man who interpreted in ways that changed the thinking of the planet, was Charles Darwin. And I asked if he would make a few comments.
Good day to you, my dear friend Richard. And wow, you've got quite the good-looking crowd today, don't you? It's hard to turn down an audience like this, so indulge me, if I may, as I recall my first impressions of the Galapagos. We arrived as though we were at the world's very edge, where raw lava shores and the dry air frame life's most improbable persistence. Lizards basked on bare rock, birds moved entirely unafraid among people, and each island revealed forms shaped by isolation alone, as if nature had been quietly running her own experiments long before I arrived to take notes. Creation pared down, purposeful and wonderfully strange.
Thank you, Chuck. Number 9, climbing Kilimanjaro, the tallest freestanding mountain on the planet. A few weeks before my climb, I went diving in Hawaii, and it was a relatively deep dive, I think 80, 100 feet or so. And then I had booked a bicycle descent of Haleakala, which is 10,000 feet high, for the next morning. Not a great idea. And as I started down the mountain, my legs started to numb and then seize. And it got to a point where I couldn't wiggle my toes. And the numbness started to creep up my leg. And I had a latent form of the bends, it turned out. I ended up in the emergency room. And the doctors performed a spinal angiogram. And I came out of it okay. I was in the hospital for a few days. And of course, I asked the doctor, I'm scheduled to climb Kilimanjaro in a few weeks. And he said, you can go, but if you can't wiggle your toes, then head down as fast as possible. So I headed to Tanzania. Kili rises like a misplaced dream above the savannah, its summit still holding the last scraps of equatorial ice. It's one of the only places on Earth where glaciers sit just 3 degrees south of the equator, though the mountain has lost over 80% of its ice since 1912. So now is the time to see it and experience why there is still tropical ice. Climbing Kili is mostly a negotiation with gravity, oxygen, and your own optimism. The volcano is so massive it creates its own weather, often shifting from rainforest to alpine desert to Arctic ice in a single day's climb. The views, they arrive long before the oxygen does, and it gives the sense that the world is holding its breath. On summit day, we awoke just after midnight. I reached into my toilet bag and took out the bottle of Zestril for my blood pressure, but the cap was off and the bottle empty. I groped at the bottom of the kit and found my bottle of codeine, which affects a deep, impossible to resist sleep. It, too, was empty, the top off, and at the bottom of the bag there was a pile of pills, all indistinguishable in the half-light of the tent. I needed the Zestril to get up the mountain, so I picked a pill and popped it. It would either propel me upward with diluted arteries, or it would put me immediately to sleep. I chose the right one. Then we were there. Top of the touchstone, the tiara of an extinct equatorial volcano, higher than any ground east of the Andes and west of the Himalayas. We stepped up to a shelf and became part of the sky. And I could wiggle my toes. At the summit of Kili, elation arrives not as a shout, but as a quiet, astonished exhale. The moment you realize you've climbed through 5 ecosystems, outrun your doubts, and somehow ended up in thin air, where the world finally feels both vast and entirely yours. There is a man who gets credit for helping to promote the concept of Kilimanjaro as one of the great adventures of all time. And I asked if he would comment.
Where was I? Oh, yes. Kilimanjaro rose clean from the plains. Approaching it felt inevitable. And oddly, what's the word? Richard, what am I thinking of? Yes, honest. Some places don't ask to be understood, only witnessed.
All right, honest. Number 8, rafting the Tatshin Shinny, which flows from the Yukon into British Columbia and ends in Alaska. We made the first descent of this extraordinary waterway in 1976. At its confluence with the Alsek, it has a flow 3 times the size of the Colorado River to the Grand Canyon. It cuts through the St. Elias Range, the world's highest coastal mountains, peaks that rocket from riverside to over 18,000 feet in less than 10 miles, creating one of the steepest vertical reliefs on Earth. And the top is one of the only rivers in the world to slice through such a range. Most rivers fall off one side or the other. It's very, very rare for a river to cut through a range that has experienced extraordinary and relatively young uplifting. This is a total wilderness. There is no sign of humans as you make this passage. No sign that anybody has ever been there. You are totally alone with this wilderness. And instead of people, you will see a galaxy of glaciers. Ursa horribilis, the meanest quadruped in North America. There are more grizzlies here than anywhere on the planet. And they can eat up to 100 pounds of salmon a day. On this trip, we negotiate past icebergs the size of office buildings while the mountains brood overhead like old gods, deciding whether to allow passage. The St. Elias Mountains contain the largest non-polar ice fields on Earth. And there is a good chance of seeing the northern lights, the aurora borealis. You have to hear it to believe it. The lights actually make a faint cracking sound, like the static of a radio. It's pretty remarkable. The ice-filled body of water where the Tatshin Shinny and the Alsek River merge is a massive iceberg-choked lake formed by the caving fronts of multiple glaciers. It is a surreal feeling, like paddling straight into the late Pleistocene. In 1988, the British Columbia government approved the Windy Craggy copper mine in the Tatshin Shinny corridor, the largest open pit copper mine on the continent. It would have leached sulfuric acid into the water table, killing the salmon and the bears and the eagles who ate them. Of course, they thought, because this is such a wilderness area, that nobody would notice if they came in and created this copper mine. We noticed. And we started a campaign and took down journalists from the National Geographic, the New York Times. We took down politicians. We took down as many folks as we could who had an appreciation of the Alaska wilderness. And of course, asked them to become constituents in a fight to stop this extraordinarily awful idea. And unbelievably, we succeeded. We've lost a lot of environmental battles over the years, but this one we triumphed. And British Columbia formally denied the mine leases and created the Tatshin Shinny Alsek Provincial Park, protecting the entire watershed. It's now part of the largest transnational park in the Americas and the largest internationally protected park on the planet. And it's also now part of, gotta catch my breath to even say this. It's now also part of the Kluane Wrangell St. Elias Glacier Bay Tachincini Alsek UNESCO World Heritage Site. The connecting pieces host more than 100,000 square kilometers of glaciers, peaks, and river systems, an expanse so vast it could swallow the sets for all, this is my favorite director, all the Christopher Nolan films, and still have room for the epilogue. Of course, after we did the first descent, we recognized it was such a unique and exhilarating corridor that we started to offer trips. In our first brochure, we featured these photos, including the one of Skip Jones with a salmon. This had a reaction we did not expect. I had, when I was a river guide in the Colorado River through the Grand Canyon in my late teens and early 20s, I became friends with the head of the Sierra Club and his group called the Sierra Singles, who often came with us on our trips. And as I was getting the company going, I asked if we could do a mailing list swap. Those things were done back then, and we did. So I sent out the brochure to the Sierra Club Sierra Singles, and I was astonished because we got so many women, primarily, going, I'll sign up for any trip that Skip's on. Please let us know. He was popular. And as a result of this was kind of strange as well. We got a call from Playgirl magazine who wanted to come out and do a feature on the Boys of Sobek, which they did. I'm not going to show it here. Number 7, the Tour de Mont Blanc, which is pretty breathtaking. Mont Blanc is what happened when the Alps decided subtlety was overrated. Standing here, it's easy to understand why the Romantic poets fled the coal-fired smokestacks of industrial London in search of what they called the sublime. Landscapes so vast and terrifyingly beautiful, they made humans feel gloriously insignificant. Writers like Percy Shelley, Lord Byron, Samuel Coleridge all found inspiration in these alpine heights, where glaciers, avalanches, and impossible peaks became antidotes to the machinery of the modern age. Away from the overcrowded cities of England, the Romantics came here searching for solitude, silence, and a decent place to hear themselves think. Mont Blanc handed them chaos, cliffs like cathedral walls, glaciers groaning in the night, and the unsettling realization that nature was under no obligation to make humans feel important. The poets, the first adventure travelers, made pilgrimages to Chamonix in the early 1800s, fleeing the soot-blackened cities for alpine landscapes they believed could restore the soul. They were right. Nature, though, is indifferent. So is the mountain ungulate, the alpine ibex, the ultimate vertical commuter with gravity-defying horns. You will see many. It is, in some ways, the white stuff. It is the most gorgeous circumnavigation in Europe, a 10-day walk through 3 countries, Italy, France, and Switzerland. All the gear is trucked around, so it's just a walk. Forbes called the MT Sobek version the world's most luxurious hiking trip. And here's another clip from another one of my PBS specials. Mountains fill the human spirit with awe and wonder. They absorb the imagination, offering challenge, veneration, and exhilaration. In early writings, they're associated with the divine. Mountains have both a physical and spiritual attraction. When in the 80s, a magazine writer called our company the inventor of adventure travel guiding, I fat-headedly believed it. So much so I asked renowned mountaineer and author David Roberts to write an introduction to our next catalog, asking him to pen a Valentine to us as the originators of adventure guiding. I can't do that, David protested. The company of the Guides beat you by 150 years. He was right, of course. The original crystal hunters in the Alps were the ones who were hired by the Romantics to take them up the mountain in the 1800s. Since then, we've partnered with the company of the Guides for many of our trips, and it has been an amazing association. We linger in storybook chalets, savoring alpine cheeses and decadent chocolates, while the evening light pours through our glasses of wine and grappa. Each sip a toast to the high romance of the Alps. And here is found my favorite, banned in 1910, now legal since 2005, the Green Fairy, the drink of mythic unreason. Absinthe makes the heart grow fonder. It's a good feeling completing the Tour de Mont Blanc. The only side effect is that altitude may temporarily improve creative expression from poetry to dancing. So I guess one of the greatest romantic writers who talked and wrote about Mont Blanc was the husband to Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein, Percy Shelley.
Mont Blanc rises above the Arve, steady, imposing, impossible to ignore. Up there, everything simplifies. The noise drops away and you're left with perspective. The power isn't loud, it's in the stillness. And Richard, to all of you here, trying to explain it like this, it's probably not enough. It's something you have to feel.
Thank you, Percy. Number 6, the Antarctica Adventure Cruise. So we conducted our first Antarctica tour in 1978. I think we were the first travel company to do so. We came searching for the edge of the world and found nature's cathedral. Boating here feels less like exploring geology and more like floating into a frozen sapphire. For centuries, cartographers and geographers speculated about the existence of a huge continent in the far south of the southern hemisphere, a terra australis incognita, presumed to balance out all the extensive land masses of the northern hemisphere. Antarctica was finally sighted in 1820 by Russian explorer Fabian Gottlieb von Bellingshausen, with the first confirmed landing by American sealer John Davis in 1821. Now, over 100,000 adventure travelers visit the last continent each year. Nothing recalibrates your sense of scale quite like having a humpback whale surface beside your kayak and casually exhale what feels like the GDP of a small nation. Humpback whales can grow up to 60 feet long and sing haunting underwater songs that travel for hundreds of miles. I like to believe that this was the original Antarctic podcast. Adelie penguins navigate a world without land predators, which is why they waddle about with such disarming confidence. They may weigh only 10 pounds on a generous day, but they have the attitude of a taxi driver and have inspired more than a few movies. They rocket from the sea at nearly 20 miles an hour, nature's tuxedoed torpedoes. And boy, can they dance. One of our chief guides, Jonathan Chester, was the chief consultant for this very happy movie. It can be so quiet in Antarctica. Then, in the frozen hush, a whale erupts from the deep like a myth remembering its name, shattering the silence with a single soaring exclamation mark of wildness. I got a call from Bill Gates, whose son Rory was studying Antarctica and not doing well. So Bill proposed taking him there along with Bill's dad. He had only 9 days, and weather was a factor, and it was at the edge of the season, but we said we would give it a try. It was a huge logistical challenge. We had to sign an NDA so that nobody knew that Bill was Bill and his child. And so as I've had to contract with various supporters of the project, I had to tell them who it was, that it was a VIP, so that they would take it seriously. So I decided to pretend that it was Billy Joel, and that worked. Throughout the entire chain, people were very excited to meet Billy Joel. I think some were disappointed when they found out who it really was. But there was a lot of security to set up medical support, and we ultimately got him there. We used the Chilean Air Force, and it was the first, I think, commercial fly-in of tourists to Antarctica. Now it's done regularly. We also were able to get him to Palmer Station, which is closed to tourism, and they were not excited about Billy Joel. But I asked Bill if I could use his name for that particular visit, and he said yes, and they opened up their doors. They promised him an hour. He stayed for 3. And he did something that had rarely been done before. Of course, it's the austral summer, and the sun skips across the horizon, never setting. And so we arranged for them to camp on the ice, which was unique then, but now it's done with some regularity. And of course, there was one man who was well known and associated a lot with Antarctica, and invited him to say a word.
Richard, my boy, Antarctica does not welcome you, it tests you. Endurance, Richard, is everything.
All right, Ernest Shackleton. Number 5, the Sacred Valley and Machu Picchu in the Inca heartland of Peru. The Inca Trail is not merely a path through geography, it's a profound pilgrimage through time, architecture, and the human spirit, standing as the most spectacular trek in South America. The trip begins in the navel of the earth, Cusco, the ancient capital of the Incas, and supposedly the oldest continually occupied settlement in the Western Hemisphere. It is one of the world's highest cities at an elevation over 10,000 feet. Machu Picchu is well below it. The Inca Trail is not just a path, but it's a work of art. It's a remnant of one of the most extensive road networks that lace the ancient world, reaching at one point 13,776 feet, Dead Woman's Pass. Hiking this trail, the pass seems real, but just out of reach, like a shiny coin beneath a grate. From the entrance gate to the citadel of Machu Picchu, we get a condor's view of the huge archaeological question mark, its origins an enigma wrapped in a riddle. For centuries, it sat undisturbed beneath the clouds until 1911, when Hiram Bingham stumbled upon the haunting, mortarless stonework city. Who built it? Why? With 100 stairways and 3,000 steps, it seems a Mobius strip of paradox and indeterminacy. Many believe this was the religious capital of the Incan Empire. Others think it was a university where priests were trained. Still others posit it as a refuge or an observatory, a military base, or the legendary El Dorado, the city of gold. Still others think it was a station for an advanced alien race from outer space. The truth, only the ghost of the Incas know for sure. I took my son Jasper there when he was a preteen, and his greatest memory was when he attempted interspecies communication. The llama answered with a spit to his face. Memorable. Of course, I had to ask Hiram Bingham his initial impressions.
Extraordinary. Hidden among the clouds, untouched for centuries, what we have here is no mere ruin, but a royal refuge of the Inca.
Thank you, Hiram. Number 4, Middle Fork of the Salmon. So why is it called the River of No Return? In the late 1800s and early 1900s, miners, trappers, homesteaders would float heavy wooden sweep boats down the Middle Fork of the Salmon to reach remote claims or send timber all the way to Portland. But the river's gradient, boulder gardens, and continuous whitewater made upstream travel impossible. One way only. And it inspired one of my favorite movies of all time, River of No Return with Marilyn Monroe and Robert Mitchum. I was invited to a party at his home in Santa Barbara in the early 90s and met Robert Mitchum, and I asked him probably a silly question from an audience member. I'm sure one he's been asked too many times. I said, well, what's your favorite film? And he goes, well, I don't watch my films. I don't like to watch myself. It's a job acting. And I go, well, you must have one that you really enjoyed. And he goes, yes, The River of No Return was far and away the most fulfilling cinematic experience he'd ever had. And that's true for almost anybody who makes this trip. The river drops roughly 3,000 feet in 100 miles, one of the steepest navigable big water rivers in North America. So the early river runners surrendered their boats to the Middle Fork's wild downhill pull, and of course there was no muscling back against its will. The current was too insistent, the canyon too sheer, the wilderness too absolute. They went in one direction only, forward, like all great journeys that matter. Today, this once feared waterway is one of the greatest river running journeys on Earth, a wild corridor whose solitude, story, and whitewater braid into pure, unrepeatable magic. What are we looking at here? A divine intervention, celestial approval, aliens from Machu Picchu, elementary probe. All we know is that these two guides vanished after this photo. Who could blame them? Note the creature on the right, stuck between a croc and a hard place. There may be wilder rivers in Africa, but at least here there are no three-dimensional apex predators. What we do have is amazing guides. They guide by day and they are gourmets by night. The true test of an expedition isn't how guides handle the rapids, but how they handle the relish. The rapids may test your mettle, but it's the river chefs who truly decide your fate. 1 minute you're braving class 4, next you're being seduced by a backcountry feast so good, it should require a permit. The holy trinity of the untamed wild. Firelit storytelling for starters, a hot spring soak for the main course, and a river-cooled fly fishing finale. Proof that even in the wild, indulgence is a perfectly balanced survival strategy. This isn't just an itinerary, it's a slow, deliberate return to the things that actually matter. Number 3, Costa Rica. There's a clip from a PBS special done there. I'm Richard Bangs, exploring the ecological nexus between North and South America, this small but potent package of a country, Costa Rica. The people here are on a tear to preserve the extravagant biodiversity of their national field of dreams, and it seems to be working. It is working. I've been to Costa Rica a few times. The last time I was there, I stayed at a Grand Hotel in San Jose. I had flown not just from LA, but all the way from India. I'm not good with jet lag, but this was especially bad. And when I arrived in the evening, my host asked me to join them for a drink. I did. And after downing a gin and tonic, I found another on the table. Then the two spoke to each other and I found a third. Then I vaguely remember dancing at some unknown hour before stumbling to my room and falling naked into my bed. Then sometime in the deep night, I awoke and headed for the bathroom. I think I still thought I was in my hotel in New Delhi as I headed straight down the hall, opened the door, walked a few steps, and heard a click behind me. I spun around, rubbed my eyes, and found I was naked in the hallway of the Grand Hotel. Columbus, on his fourth voyage to the New World in 1502, dubbed this land Costa Rica, meaning rich coast. And though he most likely had visions of gold and silver dancing in his head, the name certainly fit. Here are the riches of paradise. The Garden of Eden, an image so deeply implanted in Western lore with roots in both classical and biblical soil, is the place to which we all long to return. And the Central American garden has that same pull.
Pura vida.
For some of us, life is the interlude between paddling. Costa Rica is like the monkey who locked up the zookeeper. It's put away the constrained thinking that keeps others stuck in unproductive routines and allowed its wildness to escape the margins. Ziplining is like flying without a plane, being a bird on a wire, arguing against the laws of gravity. It's a leap of faith, and once made, all troubles are left on the ground. Biologists have a concept called hybrid vigor. By that, they mean that crossbreeding different strains of animals or plants results in something stronger than the individual strains. The same holds true for societies, and Costa Rica is a poster child. Pura Vida is not the cause of Costa Rica's uniqueness, it is the expression of it. This is a world painted in bold, unrepentant strokes, where monkeys howl, parrots and macaws swoop over waterfalls, and the white water of pure life can splash you in the face. A good friend, gets credit for much of what Costa Rica is today. He pioneered the whitewater rivers of Costa Rica, but he did so much more. Michael Kay, he's no longer with us, but he was often cited as the godfather of ecotourism because he ventured there in the 70s when it was a banana republic, created the first eco lodges, and started this whole concept of eco and responsible travel. And today, Costa Ricans are the happiest people on earth. Are they so because they have created as close to a model society as we humans have so far? Or did they create that society because they are the happiest people on earth? Whatever the genesis, there is a passionate pursuit of the pure life here that is conspicuous and admirable. The sacrosanct skyscraping trees with their upper stories and complex canopies are the architecture of happiness. This is Pura Vida. Number 2, Norway. Here's another little short clip from the PBS specials. 1,000 years ago, Vikings set sail from these fjords, striking fear across Europe. Yet today, this severely beautiful country is home to the Nobel Peace Center. How did such a progressive nation grow from such a violent past? Norway's fjords aren't just scenic. They're among the deepest and cleanest waterways on Earth, with visibility so clear that divers often describe it as swimming through glass. This Nordic wonderland has over 300 mountain peaks above 6,000 feet, many accessible by marked trails, making it one of the world's most hiker-friendly countries for travelers who crave altitude with their serenity. The earth here seems to practice its victory poses. Stand on a ledge like this, and you feel the land flex beneath you. Raise an arm, and the mountains raise one back. Norway's coastline stretches more than 60,000 miles when you include its fjords and islands. Jagged peaks tumble into mirrored fjords. The sky catches fire at sunset. And somewhere in the distance, a fisherman is composing existential poetry while gutting cod. Bergen's waterfront dates to the Hanseatic League of the 14th century, when German merchants turned the rainy outpost into one of Northern Europe's great trading hubs. In 1903, Roald Amundsen set out here to navigate the Northwest Passage. Today, it looks like a town designed by a cheerful watercolor painter with a Viking ancestry problem. The harbor glows in impossible colors. Fishing boats bob like tipsy seabirds, and every window seems lit by someone brewing coffee strong enough to survive the North Sea winter. It's home to over 200,000 wild reindeer, the last remaining herds in Europe. They migrate farther than any land mammal in the continent. Some herds travel over 300 miles a year, tracing ancient routes carved into the tundra since the last ice age. Norway's fjords were carved by glaciers up to 3,000 meters thick, leaving behind some of the steepest cliff-to-water drops on Earth, a natural architecture lesson in drama, scale, and humility, and an ideal setting for some of the most audacious movies ever made, such as this one. So, I asked Tom Cruise if he would come because he loves Norway. He's filmed there several times. And he was not available. He famously has said that he does all his own stunts, but I was able to source this gentleman who says that he is the actual stuntman for Tom Cruise. So he was with Tom on all of their filming expeditions.
You know, filming out there, it's different. I remember standing on a narrow ridge, snow, wind off the fjord, and the crew's looking at me like, "You sure?" And I'm thinking, how could you not do this for real? No stage comes close. The helicopter's circling, you get a few seconds, just a few, and suddenly, it's not a shot. It's a moment. Norway doesn't fake anything. It makes you show up for real. And yes, sometimes that means hanging off a cliff, wondering if it's brilliant or a mistake. But when you see it back, you realize it wasn't just the place that looked alive. It made everything alive.
Number one, okay, it's the Nile Cultural Discovery Tour. This, again, is a personal list. Everybody has their own, I'm sure. But Sobek means a lot to me because Sobek is the ancient Egyptian crocodile god worshipped along the Nile River. And when I first started Sobek, co-founded, we were running many of the rivers of Ethiopia, including the Blue Nile, that run in the Nile proper. And there were many ways, as I researched, that we could meet our maker from the local peoples who were somewhat hostile to tropical diseases, schistosomiasis, which is in the water, from the various wildlife, from hippos to lions to hyenas to the poisonous snakes of the 10 most poisonous snakes in the world. The Nile hosts 13, and it meant the world to me. And that I was able to find in the Library of Congress a book about Sobek, the ancient Egyptian crocodile god worshipped along the Nile and allowing safe passage for those who gave homage to Sobek. That's what we did, and it's pretty much worked. Here's another little clip. Ah, there he is. Sobek, Lord of the Nile, this most ancient of creatures. He shaped Egyptian culture, influenced religion, even empowered the pharaoh himself. It said the very waters of the Nile are the sweat of Sobek, the crocodile god. It's hard to imagine, but once these banks were crawling with crocodiles. Egypt's traditional feluccas have sailed the Nile for over 4,000 years, using the same simple lateen sail design that once carried pharaohs, merchants, and explorers, making every ride a passage through living history. What made the corridor prosper was the Nile's extraordinary navigability, with winds scurrying boats upstream and the currents downstream. Fairly unique around the world. The Great Pyramid of Giza was the tallest human-made structure on Earth for over 3,800 years, a record so absurdly long that even modern engineers shake their heads at how precisely it was built. Designed as way stations to the afterlife, they are ancient elevators to a higher floor. Egypt's desert skies are among the cleanest in the world. Hot air balloon rides here are the closest humans get to borrowing the sunrise. Rise with them and the world below turns into a vast, ancient relief map, one carved by wind, worship, and the quiet patience of civilizations that understood the value of waiting for light. The Nile at moonrise is a masterclass in understatement. The desert glows like an ember remembering its fire. The palms whisper their river secrets and the boats glide by with all the time in the world. The great hypostyle hall at the Karnak Temple complex on the east bank of the Nile in Luxor was the epic center of the living world, a sprawling 100-acre complex where successive rulers added their own monuments over a period of nearly 2,000 years to showcase their devotion to the god Amun-Re. The great paradox. Ancient Greek, Persian, and Roman rulers were mystified by how the Nile grew into a massive torrent and flooded Egypt during the dry summer season, despite running through thousands of miles of scorching desert. Alexander the Great, Julius Caesar, the Roman Empire, Emperor Nero sent well-funded military expeditions upriver, but all failed. It wasn't until 1858 that the puzzle was solved.
Well, yes, to be fair. I did not discover the Nile. Local people had known these waters for generations. Indeed, that's how it usually goes. They lived beside it, understood it far better than any outsider could. But what I sought was its beginning. So then, standing upon the shores of Lake Victoria, it struck me, not gradually, but all at once, that quiet certainty that this vast lake must be the source. After years of uncertainty, doubt, and distance, suddenly it all aligned. So no, I did not discover the Nile, but in that moment I knew I had found where it begins.
Thank you, John Speake. His rival was Richard Burton. So those are my favorite top 10s, ones I return to over and over again whenever I have the opportunity. But what about the half? So if you can't hit the road, then the best alternative I've found is to read a great adventure book. And I can recommend a few here, including the current M.T. Sobek catalog. If you don't have one, certainly request one from the office and it will be sent out forthwith. And I wanted to close just by saying that I have an upcoming trip that I'm very excited about and would like to invite anybody who might have the time and wherewithal and desire to join me on an original Kenya walking safari this October, November 5th. It is meaningful to me because I did the first descent of the Omo River in 1973, and it flows in to Lake Turkana, which is in Kenya. But the Omo is primarily, 99% of it is in Ethiopia. We did this first descent, and it changed my life, and I think the lives of many people who followed in our wake. But we were not able to cross the border. So this piece of the puzzle was left undone. So on this particular unique trip, nobody else offers this, we're going to visit Lake Turkana. And Turkana had a meaning to me long before putting this trip together, because one of my favorite books back from the 70s was Eyelids of Morning, The Mingled Destinies of Crocodiles and Men, written by Alistair Graham and photographed by Peter Beard, who went on to become famous for discovering Iman, the model, and many other exploits and books that he did. And I worked with Peter Beard, and this is a photo he took of himself inside of a crocodile. Turkana has more Nile crocodiles than any other place on the planet. So they spent a year there studying them. So there you go.
Wow.
That's a quick tour. So thank you very much. And back to you, Anne.
Thank you, Richard. That's fantastic. I can see why you are often called the father of modern adventure travel. That's quite a presentation. All right. Well, we still have a few minutes left, and I think that we have some questions from our viewers. Do we have some questions? Let's see. Hold just a minute here.
The answer is yes.
Yes,
Go.
we have questions.
Yeah.
Where are the questions? Is there a replay available? That's a question. Will we be sending will we be offering a replay of this show?
I think it's recorded, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah, we will be offering a recorded version of this presentation if you're interested. I am not seeing where the questions are. I'm sorry. Hold on just a moment.
oh, we could make some things up.
We can make something up.
Yeah.
Oh, here we go. What was your most difficult adventure?
Well, given the fact that we've been doing this for a relatively long time, there have been expeditions where things did not go as planned, and for many, that's the definition of adventure travel: a well-planned trip that goes awry. Um, I would say one of the places we underestimated was the Indus River in Pakistan. We did the first descent, and it was a river significantly larger than any we'd ever seen before. Seventh largest river in the world, cascading with glacial waters, from K2 and the Karakorums, and we flipped more than once. And we had a cameraman on board who was sucked down and survived, but it punctured his inner ear, and we ultimately had to pull our boats out and walk the final stretch because it was just too difficult to navigate. I don't think anybody's fully done the Indus River since our descent. But there've been many. So, but that's one.
All right. We have another question from Tracy. What do you think is the top most unique trip that you could speak to?
Well, we're always looking for unique, and I think we have a legacy of pioneering. So we're always looking for new places. Sometimes the political clouds will part. For instance, Venezuela we're looking at now seriously, which has been unavailable for the last decade or more. American Airlines just started service there, and as the world opens and closes, we hope to be in the front of the line of those who will probe and penetrate and interpret. For me, I think one of the ones that was a real victory was North Korea. I spent years and years lobbying not only politicians in Washington, but also any contact I could find in North Korea until we finally got the permit to bring over the first group. And we sent out the invitation by email, and we had a permit for 22 people. We had over 50 sign up within 24 hours, and they allowed us to do 2 trips back to back as part of it. That was a very satisfying challenge, and that we were able to meet it and discover it. And there's so much to say about North Korea and Iran, another place, troubled but misinterpreted.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever run into any trouble with crocodiles on any of your adventures?
Yes, of course. We've had a number of boats bitten by crocodiles, some by hippos even. A quick one. On the first descent of the Omo, my friend George Fuller, who was our doctor and an aspiring filmmaker, was frustrated by day 20 or something. He had never gotten a good video of a crocodile because they're very skittish, and we used crocodile or croc rocks, we called them, and if a crocodile started to charge us, you can just see their turreted eyes and their nose as they speed towards you. We would fire these croc rocks at them, and they would dive under as soon as one came close to them. Um, and George asked us if we would not hurl a croc rock the next time one came so he could get a good video to prove that we were actually in Africa. And of course, we held back, and this huge crocodile charged the boat, and George filled the viewfinder with it until he realized that the croc was wrapping its jaws around the bow of his inflatable boat. And he jumped on the oars. The crocodile, they have one directional jaws that can only move downward like are closed like an iron trap, but they have a hard time opening their jaws. In theory, you can hold them closed. Not tested by me, but the crocodile got stuck in the fabric of the boat, and he was wagging it back and forth the boat like a dog with a wet rag. And George's wife, Diane, jumped to the front of the boat with a bailing bucket, a metal one, started whacking the croc on the head, and it finally ripped itself loose. And everybody made it to shore. The boat was gone. We rolled it up and continued our passage. But there have been a number of crocodile bites over the years.
Wow, not too many people can say that. I'm sure that we have a few more questions, but we're actually at the end of our hour now. So I'm afraid that concludes our webinar. And thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Richard. This has been
Thank
wonderful.
you.